My dear friends, my dear compatriots, in December last year, I had a conversation with our president, Sisiko Ayuk-Tabe, where I informed him that I needed to take some time off the struggle. I felt that I had spent way too long at the forefront, especially given that at the very beginning, it was never my intention to be so deeply involved, but that I had always thought that my involvement was more of giving a bit of support here and there, and then go back to my normal life. I had the conversation with him prior to December in November, when I told him that I intended to leave, but he had convinced me to stay on a bit more. But when we had the conversation in December, my mind was made up, and I was adamant that I needed that time to myself. I also needed the time to learn more about our struggle and to be able to see things from a different perspective. Unfortunately for me, it seems as if every time I take the decision to step away, an event comes up that forces me right back into the eye of the storm, and often against my own will. The past weeks have been especially difficult for us all, but most especially for the families of our compatriots who were abducted through the manipulations of the rogue regime in Yaoundé. For one who was literally on his way out and exiting the scene, I have found myself back in the very center of it. And I would like to address a few issues. Since the struggle started, two major crises have rocked our revolution. The first being the carnage that was unleashed on our people on the 1st of October last year, and the second being the recent kidnap of our leaders in Abuja. In the first instance, in October, we saw how Yaoundé was exposed, and its brutality and human rights abuses and abduction of our citizens was laid bare. We are even told that in some instances, some of our boys were kidnapped, taken into helicopters, and then pushed out of the helicopters in the middle of the equatorial rainforest. This is reminiscent of the same kind of carnage that was unleashed against the adherents of the UPC in the 50s and the 60s. The second instance saw a Rambo-styled kidnap of our leadership in the Nigerian capital of Abuja through forces paid by La République. During this period, they were held incommunicado and refused access to their lawyers. We are told that some have been extradited to Cameroon by Nigeria, in spite of the lack of any extradition treaty between the two countries, with complete disregard for the Geneva Convention and the African Charter on the Rights of Peoples, with complete disregard for the rights of those who had taken up Nigerian citizenship, and complete disregard for the human rights record that Cameroon is so well known for. In both instances, we had the unique opportunity to expose the rogue regime of Yaoundé for what it really is. We had the chance to showcase the genocidal practices which the regime has meted against our people for a long time, but which, for once, was glaring and which we could use to our advantage and get the rest of the international world to know. In the second instance, we failed to take advantage of the opportunity to raise our communications, our diplomacy, and even our community mobilization. In both instances, we failed woefully. We have spent close to a month, and today makes exactly 1 month since the abduction, with no tangible results as to what we have been able to achieve as a result of this kidnapping. We failed woefully in boosting our communications and making our struggle the attention of the global media So far, we have no diplomatic offensives to show that we have been able to knock on some doors and we have been able to get some doors to open and listen to our issue since the abduction of our leaders. While we see grim photos of gendarmes brutally murdering our boys and dumping them behind hospital toilets, there is the urgent need to give our people hope. For a moment, we made our presence felt at the embassies, and then we got distracted by a small group of people. In both instances, we had a small group of people unleash a string of unfounded accusations against an individual, carving narratives without any evidence. In both instances, our gullible and innocent people were fooled into taking their eyes off the enemy and focusing on each other. By the time we realized what is happening, La République du Cameroon would have wiped up all the traces of the carnage that it has unleashed against our people. So, we must ask ourselves, is this group of people just playing an innocent game of attacking an individual? Or, in this case, a group of individuals whom they hate with a passion? Or is it a collaborative manipulation between the same group of people and the Yaoundé regime to make sure that every time that the regime goes out on a genocidal mission, it has a small group of people to help it clean up the evidence? How do people who were not in Nigeria give such accurate accounts of what transpired in Nigeria to the point of precisely pinpointing who was the culprit? How can anyone justify the fact that the Undersecretary for Communications, we are told, was informed way in advance that the president of the interim government was in danger of being kidnapped in Nigeria, but failed to inform security and intelligence in order for them to make the proper arrangements for his travel or to deter him from traveling? When we talk about this same group of individuals, is this not the same group of individuals who today are crying more than the bereaved? The same group of individuals who had said that Ayuk Tabe was a nincompoop, a Johnny Just Come, and a naive man who needed to be replaced. The same group of individuals who predicted 2 weeks before the abduction of our compatriots with accurate precision that they will be gone. Was this a coincidence or was this a mistake? When the same group of individuals come and declare that our compatriots are dead and that we must forget about them and move on to replace them, while encouraging us to start channeling our funds into their preferred bank account, what are we supposed to think? When the same group of individuals confidently say that they do not believe that the leaders meeting in Abuja was for humanitarian purposes, that they are convinced that the leaders were there for some other reason than humanitarian, and that they are convinced that these leaders were not there for our refugees, and then they go ahead and produce a video that depicts boys marching in military gear, then we need to ask ourselves, what are they playing at? Are they trying to set up our leaders so that they can be charged for terrorism and hanged by the Yaoundé regime? Do they think at all about the hurt that they are causing to 8 million people? Do they even think about the pain they are causing to the children, to the wives, the friends of these people who are being incarcerated? In any case, today I stand before you not to justify or to deny any of the accusations leveled against me and others by this same group of individuals, but rather to accept the tag that I have been given. Like Sisiku always said, when the same group of individuals would accuse him of being corrupt and of having stolen Scapac money in connivance with Milan, he would always smile and say, a clear conscience does not fear accusation. Those who fear are those who are afraid that these people, our leaders, are going to be free very soon and that we are all going to know the truth. Those who fear are those who have decided to flood the social media, just like they did in October, with lies, thinking that to repeat the same lies over and over and over again would make it the truth. But the truth has a stubborn way of coming back and haunting us all. Based on this confidence, I will bravely accept to be called the betrayer. I am accustomed to being the national punching bag. I have no inclination right now to point an accusing finger on anyone, as I really do not know who set us up. I do not know who sat back and watched as my compatriots, my friends, were being handcuffed and then report the event with precision to Yaoundé. I do not know who watched my steps as I went into the hotel on arrival and reported as they had reported that of my friends. Based on this ignorance on my part, I will not jump and accuse anybody, especially because I do not have any evidence to show for any such accusation. Instead, I want to focus on getting my friends released. While for the same group of people, our abducted compatriots are just tools for them to use in order to settle scores and destroy other people of whom they are jealous, envious, or angry. I want to say that these people, those who were abducted, are not tools to me. They are my friends. In lots of ways, they are my family. Sisiku Ayuktabe and myself spent a lot of time together. We spent 8 weeks on the road, morning, day, and night, shared a lot and got to know one another like brothers. We plotted together, we planned together, and even sometimes disagreed and fought against our own ideas. And it was in the process of these debates and arguments that we were able to craft the strategy for the 22nd of September, 2017. When he came to South Africa, the first place he drove to from the airport was my house. That is where we sat and we plotted together and we planned together. And the same holds for when I went to Abuja. And while others would stay in hotels, he would let me stay in his house, a house that was not known and still is not known, even to those who live in Abuja. So yes, there is someone who should know him too well to betray him, and I should be one of the suspects. And for that, I agree to carry the burden. Barrister Nalova B, beyond being my comrade, is also my very close friend. I have known her for over a year. And during this period, we have formed a formidable team that the same group of individuals was envious of. She too would stay in my house when she came visiting in South Africa. And that is how she has become the auntie to my children. It is for that matter that while the same group of individuals were busy conniving and plotting and scheming and manipulating our masses, I was busy in Nigeria taking risks and going to Nalova's house to see her children, to make sure that they were well catered for, and to hand over to them the presents that I had brought from my wife. Powerful Ngalamfo would complain often that I did not call him regularly. And everybody complains that I don't call regularly. And I do acknowledge that due to the various demands, I am not as regular as I would love to be. But often he would send me text messages to remind me that I have a burden to carry and that God alone knows why he chose me to give me that burden. It is a heavy burden to carry, and there are times when I feel like I just want to walk away. But for reasons unknown to me, the burden continues to follow me. His last message to me was through an email on the 31st of December. That was 5 days before the kidnap in Abuja. And I am going to quote verbatim. He wrote, "Interestingly, as you talked to me, you kindled a thought in me. I had to wake up and put pen to paper. And finally, from the reflection, this poem, which I hastily typed on my laptop, not to allow it to slip off." The point is, for quite some days, I was beaten flat by some negative thoughts, which sometimes took me to extreme. And I asked myself, why? 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 Without answers. I know I have suffered a lot of blackmail in this struggle, sometimes coming from less suspecting quarters. But often I am reminded that the tree that has good fruits suffers most from the stones and the sticks thrown by children. No one ever looks up a barren tree, even in the season when every tree has borne fruits. No one would have expected that with all the intellectuals the struggle is now blessed with. Focus on the bigger picture. Selflessness should be the ultimate guiding edge. Painfully, our educated elite, our economic elite, remain the greediest and self-centered one can ever imagine. This accounts for bias, intransigence, and free use of brute force on our masses. I am still here. It is thanks to God and the suffering masses at home. I have purposefully copied Milan. For some weeks back, worried by the silence and the shell cover that he has adopted. I wrote asking what was happening. Secondly, at our first Lagos meeting, I took notes of some scheming and intolerant double standards. And I warned him, as the facilitator, to be careful. I have since twice reminded him of what I said then, and he admitted that he has not forgotten. My prayer, irrespective of the distasteful, is simple. Let us solidly unite and chase out the enemy and repossess our land. This should be the priority of all priorities. Have a blessed New Year, 2018 and beyond. When I read his mail, I cried. Guilty that I did not communicate as often with him as he would have loved. I called him and we spoke on the phone and we cried together. 5 days later, he was abducted. The same holds for my other friends. Professor Awasum, who would send me daily messages of encouragement and love. Dr. Henry Kimeng, who had actually sent his own vehicle to pick me up from the airport the night of the kidnap. By the time we got to the hotel, they had been taken away. When Sisiku made one of his famous speeches and talked about the Southern Cameroonian, who was a master civil engineer, and building some of the most sophisticated infrastructure in Nigeria, he was referring to Henry Kimeng. One person with whom I had come to develop a very strong bond of comradeship and for whom I had a lot of respect is Dr. Fidelis Ndeche. We talked almost every week and worked on a number of strategies and projects together. He is perhaps the only one with whom I could have long debates around what strategies to use, disagree, and then eventually come to an agreement, and our strategy would be top of the class. So yes, he trusted me and shared a lot of information with me and could easily have been betrayed by me. And for that reason, I will bravely bear the tag and the burden of being a suspect. I'm not leaving out the others. Shufai Blaise Berimi, Dr. Ojong Okongo, Dr. Ogong Tui, Mr. Wilfred Tassang, Dr. Cornelius Kwanga, with whom I had a wonderful working relationship, and Barrister Elias Eyambe, our ambassador to the African Union. Most of these people had a comfortable life, but chose to give up their privileges in order to fight for 8 million people. Unlike a certain group of people who saw the struggle as a place for them to make a living. While the same group of people may want to take advantage of the moment to carry out their personal vendetta, manipulating our people into believing lies and chasing the wind instead of chasing the enemies of our struggle, I have chosen to invest my energy over the past few weeks, working diligently and quietly with various sources to locate my friends, to understand their situation and be sure of their well-being. For the same group of people, they may have been mere tools for their revenge mission, but for me, they are my friends. Contrary to what the same group of people are saying, my friends are not dead. They were not killed on the same night of the kidnap. They are alive. We should therefore not be fooled by the same group of people into thinking that they are dead, and now that we can turn our attention to other things. This is a ploy to make us neglect them and permit Yaoundé to do whatever it wants with them. We must not let the same group of people manipulate us into leaving our friends behind. The same group of people are afraid that not too long from now, these friends are going to be released and that the truth is going to come out. And while they plot and they scheme and manipulate in their desperate efforts to turn our attention away from the uncanny predictions that they made, I will bravely bear the burden of the national punching bag until my friends are afforded their basic human rights and until they are set free. While the same group of people has been plotting and scheming and manipulating information, a small group of true fans of Ayuk Tabe have been working quietly in the background to build the Free Ayuk Tabe campaign platform. Contrary to the same group of people, we will stubbornly refuse to accept that our friends are dead. We refuse to leave Nigeria in peace. We will stubbornly continue to fight the Republic of Cameroon. We will stubbornly disturb the peace of the international community because the 12 abducted people are our friends. They are my friends. They are my comrades. And the same holds for the 39 others who were abducted together with the 12. I therefore look forward to more true friends and compatriots joining us in the Free Ayuk Tabe campaign, which will be the vehicle that we hope to use to push for the release of these fellow freedom fighters and activists whose only crime is their conscience. I thank you.